what is the one thing that you've fought the hardest for against all management and won, and what's the thing you fought the hardest for and lost?
Good question.
The thing I fought for but didn't get. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Probably a Gen 6 Viper. I wanted to get a paddle shift system in the Viper. We could not package it. I don't know if that would have saved the car. I think it's one of those cars that now that it's gone, people appreciate it more. We're still with the Germans back then, and Germans love these powerful station wagons. They're crazy about them. So we got it proved in 2 seconds when we showed the sketch of the Magnum. Now the story about the Magnum, the reason it died was to make room for the Challenger. Yeah, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but the C8 Corvette is probably the best example, right? Here's a car that is probably mechanically the most outstanding machine General Motors have ever made. Just a masterpiece of engineering. Even proportionally, it's not horrible, but it's overstyled.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Oil and Whiskey. This week, very special one. We have Ralph Gilles, Chief Design Officer for Stellantis. Is that the correct terminology?
Yes, and I like to add North America and Maserati because
Okay.
It's not the whole enchilada yet. But
Awesome.
That's quite a title.
Quite the title. Yeah, quite the title. I know you've done a lot of these. I've been doing my research prior to. Actually learned about you through the Speed Core build, right? And I was like, well, who is this guy? And I didn't know who you were. Yeah, absolutely. Badass car. And then I've been following you ever since, and did a little bit of digging over the weekend. And I want to try to make sure that we do you justice, but because your story's been out there and people that are in the car world know you probably so well, I want to bring your story to our audience, but I also I don't want to be redundant in questions. So we're going to try to do our best and be creative in our questioning. It's a daunting task. It's a daunting task. Usually we can just roll through stories and stuff like that. So I'm a little intimidated.
Impress me this evening, Josh.
Don't
Let's
worry.
see what you got. What you got up
Be
your sleeve?
prepared to be
Fire away.
impressed. Yeah.
Set the stage.
Well, Ralph, absolutely amazed that you could come on. We've been looking forward to this one for a while. And I do want to get into, briefly, a little bit of story. So you're Canadian American. So you're born in New York, I think, and then moved to Canada when you were young.
Correct.
I've heard a little story. So you got an older brother. He's actually here in Chicago, right?
That's right. Yeah, right. I don't know exactly where you guys are, but he's just outside the city.
Yeah, we're northwest suburbs, about 45 minutes northwest of the city.
Yep, that's about where he's at. Yeah.
And young age, you're drawing cars, super into it. At what point did you say, or did you know, didn't know how, but did you know that this is something that I want to do for a living? And that's different. That's different than knowing that you can do it for a living. When did you know that you want to do it for a living?
The want came before the can, because I think, living in the 70s, I grew up in the 70s. I'm 54 years old. I'm a little crusty. Anyone who remembers the mid-70s, cars were starting to get pretty damn ugly. The OPEC oil crisis, everyone was going front-wheel drive. The fastest thing, I think, was 160 horsepower Trans Am.
Yeah, it was a tough era.
Exactly. So at that age, I kind of saw the difference between the econo boxes and the remnants of the muscle car era, and even a handful of the cool cars from Europe, like the 930s and stuff like that. So I was very aware. I was really noticing the design differences, the style. Why is one car look that way, another one look that way? So I wanted it from the beginning. I wanted to get involved in the process and harness this attitude I had about it. The can part came a lot later. I didn't really understand, first of all, how to get. Every time I went to my school counselors, they kept pointing me back towards engineering, which I also had a penchant for that. I used to tinker all the time when I was a kid. I can't tell you how many. I think I got stoned several times assembling plastic car models when I was a kid.
That was the best.
That'll happen.
Tester's glue.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's got a smell.
Kind of like this whiskey. I must have made 200 of those models just trying to, again, deconstruct the automobile, understand it better.
But from the engineering side of building those models, sorry to cut you off, your mindset when you're trying to figure out those things or modify or doing that, it's coming still from what it's going to look like at the end phase, right? So you're engineering to get to a look.
Exactly. And I would actually combine two models. Like the cars, because a lot of cars didn't have the right wheels, so I would steal them from one model and put them on another and start the hot rod thing, the stepping up part that I still do to this day with my real cars. So yeah, this kind of passion for, can it look better? Can it go better? Can it make your heart beat? Kind of thing. But I honestly didn't understand how you people got paid for it. I understood someone out there must be doing it. And there was no internet back then, right? So I couldn't really just pop in car designer. So it took my aunt making me write a letter to Lee Iacocca at the time. I was, think, 15 years old or so.
Wow.
She was a go-getter, one of these aunts that anything you can imagine, you got to do it, follow your dreams kind of motivator person. And she made me do that. We sat down at her kitchen table and scribed out a letter. It was really cocky. It's like, my nephew's so talented. You need him. She wanted me to hire. She wanted him to hire a 15-year-old kid to design his cars for him. I'm like, oh my God. But they were gracious enough to write back and recommend some colleges, which I ended up following their advice. Now, it wasn't a clean path, to be honest. I went to engineering school anyway, thinking I had to scratch that itch. Kind of ran into calculus too, and that was it. So
yeah.
I ran out of.
Did you go the engineering route because you had that much of an interest in it, or did you think that at the end of the day that was a sounder financial path?
Exactly that, because my brother, who lives where you're at, is a doctor. He's an ER doctor. My parents, we're measuring the two things. I've got an artist kid who likes to doodle cars, and
a brother. People.
Exactly.
How do you live up to that? I mean, trying to chase that path. That's why now I see why you chose the engineering first, because they
didn't get it. My parents didn't understand what it was. They thought, hey, it's great to do art, but you can't make a living doing that kind of thing. So yeah, I kind of gave up on it. I went to engineering school. I actually dropped out because I didn't like it that much. I started working at a hardware store. I was unloading semi trucks and doing that stuff, and I got promoted really quickly there. So I was like, I could do this the rest of my life, and I was excited. And then, of course, my brother came home from spring break. He goes, "Where's that letter?" Because Iacocca did write us back. Not Iacocca, but his number 2 guy in design office wrote me back and actually gave us those colleges. And my brother knew I had a letter, but I just folded it away and just kind of didn't think anything of it. And my brother said, "Hey, dumbass, go get that letter and let's follow their advice." And we did. So we called up the schools. They said, "Here, you got to put a portfolio together." We stayed up 5 days straight. First time in my life I ever had coffee. My brother made me endless pots of coffee, just kept sketching, and we mailed it away. And it was like, cross the fingers and see what happens. And they sure enough, they wrote back. The school wrote back. I got accepted. But then it was the money thing. So Canadian dollar was worthless, right? So I immediately went to my boss at the hardware stores. "I'll work triple time, overtime, anything you got, and started not dating girls anymore. And I put every penny I had into saving up for school.
When you're sketching stuff at that point in time, what are you sketching? I mean, what's the inspiration? What are you looking at for inspiration? And
don't judge me. Don't judge me. So
this is a safe place. There's no judgment.
You promise?
Yeah.
You promise now?
Yeah,
of course.
All your viewers won't judge me?
Yeah. They might, but I mean, not so much. No.
I had this fantasy of having my own car company, so I would call it Gilles Motors, right? And everything had my last name on the bumper and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of my stuff looked like AMG kind of tuner. I was into the tuner look, so based on what was already kind of on the road, but hyped up and modified. I would do some sketches of cars I saw in the movies, like the Charger. I was addicted to Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider and all that stuff back then. Yeah, so it was more like that. It wasn't artistry, to be honest with you. I learned that in school. I thought I could sketch, and I think they took a chance on me and admitted me to the college. And when I got to CCS in Detroit, that's when the humbling began. I was like, oh my God, these kids are talented. And, kids from it's like going to X-Men Mansion and realize
you can just
exactly. You do, but it ain't nothing compared to
your superpower is just a little flame in your hand. Like, it's cool.
That's it. That's all you can do.
Yeah, the guy shooting laser beams out of his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Did you have any training in high school or junior high, or was it just all?
Yeah, we had art. I had art class, and that was the thing. Luckily, art still existed, but it was definitely starting to fall apart, which is a big problem today in most schools. That art doesn't exist anymore. So I took every art class. I loved it. I was a natural at it. I love to paint. I still like sketching anything. I can draw just about anything. So that's still fun for me. And I respect art. I really am a big fan of artists that are out there making a living, doing stuff like that. So.
Well, I don't want to focus too much on early stuff, and I don't want to get too personal. But I do want to know. I'm intrigued. It's hats off to your brother, one, for pushing you and saying to do that, right? Your parents were immigrants, right? Y'all
Yes.
came here from, is there Haitian?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm completely projecting. I'm making my own story, and I want to know. But I would have to assume, they're like, we came for the better life, right? We're giving you the opportunity. Your brother is taking the opportunity, right? There has to be that, like, look what we've done. We've moved here. He's got all these opportunities. Now he's got lazy, right? He thinks he's gonna go play with art, and so like that.
Now he's just scribbling and drawing cars. Is what you're thinking?
That's exactly. You nailed it. That's exactly what it was. And not only my brother, my cousins, one after another, became doctors and lawyers, and they all, they didn't want to squander it. And you have to understand, immigrant parents, especially my parents, were super strict. There was no, we didn't play any sports. We just studied or read books, or in my case, I pretended to read books but really sketched.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a big chance. But in the end of the day, thanks to my brother's urging, they did support me. But I'll never forget, we drove all the way from Montreal to Detroit, good 11-hour drive, 12-hour drive. My parents about opened the door, kind of put my stuff on the sidewalk and said, "Good luck, son," and took off back home. They didn't even,
he'll be back in a couple weeks.
Compared to Montreal, Canada, Detroit was a little scary back then. It was a little. They were like, "What is this place?" It had a dystopian kind of.
Yeah, like Gotham City.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, especially where the school was at the time.
Yeah. So you come into school, right, and you're seeing how much talent everybody has. I would have to assume, just a little bit of talking to you, all that does is fuel the fire of like now. Mm-hmm. Now I got to get good. Now I've got to consume everything I can consume and figure out how to get better.
Exactly, and that's the way that school is designed. I mean, they throw the class. I think there was 100+ kids that want to be car designers, and then they tell you, "Hey, go ahead. Everyone has a chance." And then they pare you down. My graduating class, I believe, was 14 kids.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they don't just boot them all out. Some of them end up going to animation, or a lot of my friends end up in the movies. They made sci-fi stuff that you enjoy in the movies. To this day, they're active in Hollywood doing that stuff, which in some ways is more fun because there's no feasibility police. And someone in the graphics and went into other things. So yeah, but man, it was a boot camp. It really was, and it wasn't. I grew up watching Animal House and all these fun college movies that made it look American college. It wasn't that at all. It was like a vocational school on steroids.
Throughout that process, they're teaching you techniques and they're teaching you everything. They got to keep your fire lit, right, to keep going. Yeah. But how much of the real world are they telling you about car design, of like explaining to you of like, hey, I don't want you to be let down. Like there's going to be a thing. You might get stuck on interior door handles for a little while,
You are asking some amazing questions. So the benefit of a school like CCS is that it's in Detroit, right? You got the big three, Ford, GM, Chrysler right there up the street. And the beauty, we'd have visiting designers, real world designers that some of them were just hired recently. Others had 10 years, 15 years experience. They were gods to us. They came in and they would tell us tales. They would bring in brand new cars they had just finished. Some of them times they'd drive prototypes. To the school, we were like, these guys they're real superheroes.
Yeah.
But after an hour or two, they would tell us exactly what you're saying. It's like, yeah, some of you may never make it. Others will be drawing doorknobs. And ironically, my first assignment was a HVAC knob for a Chrysler Concorde, and it was kind of like a wah. Where's the muscle cars? But yeah, that came later.
Well, yeah, and I think I think it's going to be interesting to go down that path because there's a message, I'm sure, in that. But so you're going through school, you're continuing to get better, you're honing your skills, you're networking. Obviously, great choice. There's several great schools. I mean, West Coast. I mean, you've got down in Savannah. You got some great colleges for art and design and predominantly transportation design. Detroit, geographically, makes a lot of sense from where you came from, but it also makes a lot of sense, like you said, with the big three. I mean, networking wise, you've got opportunities that
correct,
California doesn't have.
Yeah, I was making that connection. At that age, I didn't know. It was, to your point, it was just closest thing I could find. Could barely afford to fly anywhere. But on the other hand, so I went to College for Creative Studies, and then you had Art Center was the other two big ones, and they're in California. The benefit they have over the years, and it's still the case, most OEMs, including Europeans and Japanese, have set up remote studios there because California has always been seen. It still is the trend-setting part of the world, where trends tend to take off over there. So a lot of, even ourselves, we had a satellite studio there for 20 years. And ironically, Mercedes bought our old studio. But you talk, all the Koreans have studios there. Cadillac just opened up a brand new studio there. You name it, someone has a studio out West Coast. Sometimes they're tiny, like 20 people. Other times you got, Ford had a team of 200 people out there. So so you got those two camps, and there's still to this day this rivalry between the Art Center people and the CCS people. But today we're hiring people from everywhere, even product design schools, fashion industry, tech, all, video game designers, all kinds of stuff.
Throughout that process, are you starting to have a dream of what company you want to go to?
Yeah, I had the loyalty for Chrysler at the time because of that interaction when I was a kid, but GM was top dog. GM really was the biggest by far. They had concept car after concept car. They had some awesome stuff. And I grew up loving the Grand Nationals and some of the early Corvette stuff. But I felt the loyalty to Chrysler. And I didn't get an offer from GM. I got an offer from Ford and Honda of Ohio and a few others. But Chrysler was home to me, so I went for it.
It's interesting. I was going to get into this later, but I guess I'll bring it up now. You're looking at Chrysler, right? What made you send a letter to Iacocca with your aunt then?
What made us do it? TV commercials. So
Okay.
At the time, we're talking mid 80s here. So you had Chrysler had just come out of bankruptcy. They were setting up the K car, the Magic Van, all that stuff. And they thought it'd be a good idea to put the CEO on television. So he used to make, I don't know if you remember, maybe you can find a sample of it. That was a famous commercial. He'd say, if you can find a better car,
buy it.
And that commercial, for some reason, they played that nonstop. And my aunt just remembered. The only car exec she could remember was Lee Iacocca. So she found out the address of Lee Iacocca and sent it to him.
Well, I mean, he was on a mission at that point. I mean, he was trying to revive. So I mean, it was his face. He was doing everything, and he was bold and brash. Yeah. At that point, it was push all the chips into the table. Like you didn't have anything to lose, right? Everything to gain.
Yeah. Exactly. My job, when I hired there, I overlapped him by 2 years. And I'll never forget the first time he walked into the studios. And when that man walked into anywhere, it was like a V formation. You had him and you had his henchmen. It was incredible. And he'd be walking in the studios with a big stogie. It was just like, damn. It was
like the movies.
Exactly. Just
part in the sea.
Well, where I was going with that is, I mean, again, I'm not trying to get too personal, but I'm trying to get into. I'm really interested in the mindset, right? We can get into talent and all that stuff like that, but the mindset of track, because I think it's imperative for shops out there that are building cars and understanding the mindset, but it's also imperative for the younger audience that's listening to whatever path they take. Hopefully in the automotive world, but whatever that path that is, the mindset is the most important thing. The mental thing. Physical doesn't mean anything. The mental overcomes all. But
100%.
So you're coming from Canada.
Yep.
You're a minority. You go to school. You're noticing that you don't have the skills like anybody else, right? You pick Dodge, right? Chrysler, which is the last of the big three, right? It's an underdog mentality, basically throughout everything. Are you looking
100%.
at taking the underdog job because of the possibility of be along for the ride to get, but instead of being like, all right, I'll go to GM, they're already at the fucking top. What can I prove?
If I had a therapist, I think he'd sound like you.
I hate to project. I'm really trying to get there.
You're going deep.
No,
you're hitting
back,
it every time, man.
No, looking back on my life, you're absolutely right. I've always loved the underdog vehicles. I love the underdog story. I love underdog movies, you name it. And I did feel that way. And when I was attracted to Chrysler because they were always making a comeback, of course. Now, when I joined them, they had just gone through and they showed me their future. They took us through and showed me what they were up to. And I was in disbelief, like the amount of investment. They had the brand new tech center up north. They had the cab forward cars were not out yet, but they had those crazy windshields that were really far forward at the time, looked like spaceships. And they had, the Portofino concept. And then after that, the Viper concept. That one stopped me in my tracks. So it's like, here's this upstart, the smallest of the big three doing big things. And until then, they'd been known for K cars. So they went from being the K car company, were just laughable kind of mainstream get me done cars,
to doing exotic shit. I mean, that was an exotic car.
And buying Lamborghini. People forget that, but
yeah.
The Chrysler bought Lamborghini in the late 80s. And everyone's like, what are they doing? And then
spending money to get to the top is what they're
What year?
exactly.
What year?
So
Go ahead.
That was, I think, 87. They bought Lamborghini,
So
and they owned it like 4 years.
when you're walking through there and seeing this investment, everything that Chrysler's doing, what
Yeah.
year is that they have a prototype
Oh,
Viper sitting on the
um,
floor?
so that would have, I joined in 92, very early, in like middle of 92. I had seen the concept car in 89 at the motor show in Detroit. I was already at school
89.
1 year. So I was a student. I went to CCS in 88. I saw the concept car in 89, and that sealed the deal. When I saw that concept car, I'm like, and it was basically the first year I was there because it was January of 89. I was like, okay, they're onto something here. Everybody was talking about that car and talking about Chrysler's surprise at the auto show and on and on. And then after that, if you pay attention to Chrysler from 90 to 98, it was nonstop onslaught of concepts after concepts. Sometimes
That's
they'd show up
you're
four
modeling.
concept.
That's Tom Gale then, right? So
Yes,
Tom Gale's
yeah.
crushing it. Are you meeting Tom Gale? Are you idolizing Tom Gale? Are you being like, I can do that, but I can do better?
So I didn't know who he was yet. A couple years in, he was always with Iacocca. It was Bob Lutz, Iacocca, Tom Gale, Francois Castaigne. Those four guys were the legends. You had the visionary, you had the CEO, you had the engineer designer, and then you had the motorsports expert guy. And they were incredible. And you would listen. You would try to. I wasn't. They were having meetings with my bosses. I'm just trying to listen in, and just the way they had the command of the industry. So they were legends to me. And it was till about the mid '90s I finally had the nerve to go up to Tom Gale and actually ask for a meeting. That's the other thing about myself. I'm kind of fearless that way. Like, what the hell, So I went in, and he was so gracious, gave me a lot of good advice. And we are to this day we're good friends. I have lunch with him here and again. I've been to his place up north. I've walked with him at Pebble Beach. Just an amazing man. And he still to this day can dress down any designer. He can critique any design on the planet, and he's right every time. So I learned a lot of my style of leadership through him, observing him, but also talking to him and getting advice from him. Just an amazing, amazing human being.
Well, I know we're bouncing all over, but I'm so intrigued. I'm intrigued mentally, but I'm also intrigued in the mental aspect, but also the transition from I hope I can get a job. Holy shit, I'm meeting with Tom Gale. I do have to design, an AC knob, right? But then I'm doing these cars, but then I'm also probably not designing near as much, and I'm running a team of several hundred people, and that's a broad progression along the way.
Probably a pretty big jump.
A huge jump in between there. Right.
So here's the thing about Chrysler at the time, and to this day, I still lead that way. And Tom Gale was known for having no problem throwing the newest kid in the deepest end of the pool. He really believed in that. Whereas in other car companies, in a lot of companies, only the top guys get to get the credit or touch anything, and then they get trickle it down. But he was like, hey, if you had the sketch. So concept car comes in. It was Intrepid in 95. I sketched on it. In my interior one, I did a full interior. I went from doing keyback knobs to the full concept. And I couldn't believe it. Here I am, not even a couple of years in the company, 3-4 years, and I got this whole thing, and it blew my mind. They sent me to California at the studio I was telling you about, and I spent a few weeks there because the sketches were so ethereal. The guy didn't know what to do with my sketches, so I had to go in and actually clay model it myself. But long story short, that opportunity led to others and others, and I learned that if you put your mind to it, compete, you get rewarded. And I kept getting thrust in the leadership positions. To this day, I think I'm probably a better leader than a designer. I'm a good designer. I've got a good eye, but there's got kids that can out sketch me. But getting teams, disparate people to work together is my skill. I mean, I can rally a bunch of misfits and make them do amazing things.
Back to
including myself.
Back to your sketch of the Intrepid that won, and then you go out there and you have to clay model it. Did you learn from that experience on how to change your sketch going forward, knowing that now I got to interpret this for the guy to build it?
Exactly. Making it more defined, cutting sections. So the next time I did one, I had a section book. I had a whole book of every little detail, and the builders loved it. They said, "Thank you, Ralph." Now we can actually make and they did. They executed it even better than the book was. And that's a lesson that's actually, it's funny you mention that, because today my designers are known for that. When they're approached to go to other companies, people are blown away by how thorough they are. So my designers can typically out-engineer an engineer. What I mean by that, they can do a sweet car, but they can cut a section and know exactly how everything's going to work underneath the skin. If they don't know, they go find out. So I always force them to go deep when they design something and really think it through. and they've garnered the respect of the engineering community at the company because of that.
It's funny. I mean, Bree brought it up because we do have some experience in that, not obviously to this level, but we joked about it all the time with designers in the industry being awesome, awesome renderers, awesome car designers and stuff. And we're doing maybe custom chassis for a customer that's got this great rendering, right? And you see the rendering and they're so excited and stuff. And we're looking at it. And you're like,
where does the motor go?
You're like, that's an awesome rendering, but it's like there's a thing that goes behind that, and I see where the wheel is and it's not going to turn, right? We joke about that all the time of like, it's different. And that's why I asked the question, because building the car, having to do it or having to explain it to the guy that's building it teaches you like, I probably need to give a little bit better information.
Or having the self-control or restraint, because you probably want to design it as cool as humanly possible, I'd have to imagine.
Of course.
But knowing those limitations, like there has to be X amount of wheel travel, right? Which that inherently, like that, we're just right out of the gate, it's going to make it not as cool as you want it to be.
Right. Because you want to make it like an F1 car and you want to put...
And there's a time for that, but yeah, you're right. Most of the time, if you want it to actually be something that people can use and enjoy for years, yeah.
So progressing along, so you do the interior, right? So you're making a name for yourself. You start going. So when is the progression? I want to get from the Intrepid to right before Chrysler 300.
Okay, so good point. So I did the Intrepid. I worked on. So if you think of the concept cars that Chrysler was doing, and I didn't realize that at the time, but I know a lot about it now. Tom Gale was obsessed. Tom Gale, Iacocca, they loved Pebble Beach. That was one of their favorite shows of all. And a lot of those concept cars would end up on the lawn at Pebble Beach. In fact, we owned Club 19, I think it was called. Literally, Chrysler would sponsor Pebble. They were a huge, huge participant. So the concept cars, in a way, were designed for Pebble. Even though we showed them at Detroit Motor Show and all the different shows, would end up.
He did the Atlantic too, right?
Yes. These grand, and if you can imagine how beautiful that would look on the lawn at Pebble, right? This Atlantique, the Kronos, the 300, the Thunderbolt. There were these really crazy, almost like they make no sense as actual vehicles, but they're just beautiful sculptures. So that was the trend going on back then and all that. So what I'm getting at is that those were all rear drive, big motor vehicles. At the time, we were still making V6 front drive, cab forward cars, the Intrepid, the Concorde, all that stuff. So Tom Gale was itching to do a rear drive, a big V8 powered muscle. We had the new Hemi coming along for the truck, but he knew it could fit in the car. So my studio, I happened to be in Jack Crane's studio, was a rear drive studio. So we started sketching on it as a manager, as a board designer. And my boss, who was in his late 60s, decided to retire. Right, and here I am. I was 29 years old. And they asked me to run the studio, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, excuse me, I've only been in the company less than 8 years, and they're asking me to head up a studio. So I was I didn't want the job. I was scared.
Is that when you call mom and dad and be like, "Ha, I made it. See, it's paid off."
Literally, I was mortified. I guess I had run some intern programs, and they liked the way I managed. So they took a flyer on me, and I ran the studios. And the first assignment was really taking trying to go from the 300M, which was the coolest cab forward car we had, the Chrysler 300M, replace it with the 300. And we had sketches that were, but of course the V8 wouldn't fit in a slopey hood car. So at the time, a lot of people don't understand this, but we had an advanced studio that Freeman Thomas, you heard the name, very famous designer, ended up back at Ford again. He had this design, and with him and Bob Hubbock had this kind of Ghia inspired, which was like the Kronos concept car, which I fell in love with. I thought that's the answer, but no one else liked it at the company. So it kind of died, and I said, can I give it a shot? And I took it, made it more feasible, made it longer so it would fit people, fix the proportions, but kept that grill, the iconic 300 grill. And we took it to the clinic, and it crushed it in the clinic. Even then, the bosses still didn't like the car. It's like, it's an old-fashioned thing, and I just kept ignoring it and kept working on it. And we took it to a different type of clinic, archetypal clinic, where you measure emotion, not just yes or no. And when this is an important story. So we put the car it's in Chicago, actually. I remember the clinic was in Chicago. We had about 250 people in the room. We lit up the 300, which looks pretty much like what we came out with, in the middle of this ballroom, darkly lit ballroom. We had the car in the middle with just a light on it. Showed it to these people. These are school teachers. These are regular Americans. We bring out sleeping bags, and we tell everybody lie down for 20 minutes take a nap. We shut the light and said, when you wake up, we want you to write down what you're feeling. About 2 women got up and ran out of the room screaming things. So they thought we were culprits. So they wake up and they wrote all these stories. We took the stories and sent them home and said, thank you very much, And then we read the stories later, and they were amazing. The car reminds me of when my dad took me to the movies when I was a kid, or it was all these amazing many. It looks like a gangster car. It makes me proud of America. It's all these amazing. And from then on, we knew there was something special. So I was tasked with taking that all the way to production. And that's how it happened.
I never knew that in the design process that there was any sort of like input from consumers, that you ever put your feelers out there.
You're going to spend $1 billion on something. You want to make sure.
It's interesting to hear how that process works.
The methodology of knowing that most cars look better chopped, but you can't chop the car, right? Only to a certain point. So let's move the belt line up, right, and make it appear as if the door line, the door windows are that much smaller. And then there was so much, like you said, the gangster car. There was Rolls inspiration in there. There was Bentley inspiration in there. I remember that car coming out, right, and when you'd see it, instantly you were like,
it kind of looked like a very high-end luxury car.
Before you knew like the pricing of the car, it looked super expensive. And that's really, was a key thing. And then there was trickle down in that platform, obviously, in all different types of market. But that was the thing that was like, holy shit.
And you mentioned the belt line, and the belt line, it blew all of our rules. And if you remember the Audi TT, if you remember that vehicle, Freeman had done that. He had done that in the VW when he inspired that car. And that's where the high belt line
a TT for so long.
I'm with you.
And the belt line, that every designer in the world saw that car and was like, OMG. It was the highest belt line in the production car. And he took that idea to the 300, and engineering tried to kill it a million times. It was like literally 2 inches higher than anything we had done before. People can see out of the car, blah, blah, blah. So again, he lost that battle because he didn't, one thing, I love Freeman, but he didn't know how to work with engineers. He just, you're stupid, and run away. So I ended up inviting them in and romancing them and explaining that, man, if I take the belt line down, the whole magic of the car is gone. So I spent a lot of time convincing the engineers and trying to find a way to tweak it. We bent it a little bit more so they can see out the front. And some people didn't like it at first, but man, it really became the signature of the vehicle.
At what point? Well, you're starting to get positive feedback because, like you say, you're doing these clinics. You personally liked it, right? And that means something. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean near as much as the public buying it and it becoming a cult following like it does. So at what point do you realize what it's doing? And then did you ever think that it was going to be such a cult following with such a demographic? Like, that was the urban demo.
Yeah.
It was in every rap video, every episode of MTV Cribs. It was that. That guy might have a Ferrari and he might have this, but he's got a 300, on 24s, because you could fit 24s on it easy. Or 22s.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because the car launched with 18s. And I knew it could fit 20 more. We designed it because at the time, the BMW 750 IL was the only vehicle that could fit 20s, barely fit 20s, with tiny, tiny tires. And we had left room for that, but it launched with 18s. And I took my personal, I had an early tester. And I took it and I went to the tire shop and ordered 20-inch wheels. I put on my personal car. And just by chance, we had an interview with Time Magazine. And they needed a 300. I had the only 300 available at the time, so I drove it to the interview. They took me downtown Pontiac. They made me take a picture in front of the car. I'm like, what are they doing? I had no idea they're going to write an article about me and the car. I just thought, hey, they love the thing. And marketing was so pissed at me because the picture they used was my personal car with 20s, which wasn't even available.
Was that subliminal? So you're gonna push them into 20s next year? I had to just get the.
That was my mission. And I kid you not, a week as soon as the car was available, not even 6 months later, I'm watching the MTV Music Awards, and Dr. Dre was performing, and him and Snoop, I believe, brought a 300 on stage, and they had somehow put scissor doors on it already. I don't even know how they got it done.
I'm sure it was West Coast. That was Ryan.
And was on the stage and they were singing and dancing around the car. I was like, oh my God, that had nothing to do with us. That was all organic. And then I knew it was going to be a runaway hit once that happened.
And that platform really has been up until last year. I mean, or when it was
20-year run.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It reminds me of back in the day, the old Cutlasses and all that. They had a long run. The Crown Victoria, not as special, I guess, but
right. But
and they're going to be around a long time. I think people are going to be. We built a lot of them. We have millions and millions of them out there. So I think they're going to be trading hands for another 2 decades easily.
So I assume at that point, things really start getting crazy because I mean, one, that the platform, it's a hit, and then it's like we got to have the Magnum, and then like why not put a fucking let's make a wagon, let's do that, let's make, and it just started rolling.
Yeah,
that was the
nonstop
cool station wagon.
The Magnum wagon was a game changer. Like prior to that, nobody really thought a wagon was cool. Like that was before it was neat to take like a Vista Cruiser and slam it on the ground, and it's kind of ironic, right? No. But that wagon it was just a gorgeous car.
You make it look like it's chopped, and it's fun. I mean that thing. I mean that wedges down like it. Yeah. I mean, I know we're not telling you anything. You were in the discussion.
I made it cool.
I remember showing when we showed the Magnum concept car to Car and Driver before it was revealed. We had a little preview. They thought it was chopped. They thought it was you chopped it for the concept car. I said, no, that's the part we didn't change. And it came out that way. And you have to understand, we're still with the Germans back then, and Germans love these powerful station wagons. They're crazy about them. So we got it proven in 2 seconds when we showed the sketch of the Magnum. Now the story about the Magnum, the reason it died was to make room for the Challenger. So we could only make 3 cars at the plant. We couldn't make 4. So something had to give, and we knew the Challenger was going to be a hit. So I had taken a clay model in the studio and shortened it 6 inches to create the Challenger. It was very boxy. It wasn't as beautiful as the one that we have on the road. And we sent it to California, the package, and they drew up Mike Castiglione, who moved on. He's still designing things. He sketched that first sketch, and the management fell in love with it. And that's when Lasorda, if you remember that, he showed the concept car and spontaneously said, "This will be in production in 2 years' time." And everyone was like, what? It was literally just us fooling around with the concept. And he did. We launched the car in 22 months, which is still to this day the fastest developed vehicle ever.
I mean, that had to be the first car that was really a throwback. That kind of led the charge.
Well, throwback that was done right.
Well, right. But that kind of led the charge for like Ford followed suit. All of a sudden, the Mustang started, looking, it was pulling like little elements of the classic fastbacks. And Chevy's always late to the party, but then the Camaro comes out. But that car I remember when the concept dropped, and it was just mind blowing.
Yeah, you're like, damn, you really did.
I couldn't
throwback and didn't fuck it up.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that was it was a bit of a we never really clinicked it. We didn't have time to clinic it. We just did the concept, and we got the real time feedback. But everyone in the building was excited. Think about it, right? The managers were that age. They were the guys that wanted to buy the car, so obviously it was easy. And people talk a lot about kids, but most cars are bought by 50-plus-year-olds, So there is something to be said to making that car that you can have the first time around, right? So that's in a way why the car behind me looks the way it does, right?
What led the charge on that philosophy of like bringing back the old school? Was the discussion on like the engineering side more that, okay, we're bringing back the Hemi, and then did it go from there that, well, if we're bringing back the Hemi,
if you think about it, as a designer, there's a couple things. We design around the package. So the Hemi was being a V8, being a rather large lump that you have to design around, and the cooling required. It sort of makes you make the front end quite bulky, which is kind of what the older muscle cars used to be. They were pretty much heat exchangers. Think about the Charger, the Challenger. They were even the 68. It was all about cooling that engine behind there. And that was the same even when we designed those cars. So that kind of, when we started sketching it that way, everything trying to look modern didn't work with a bulky front end. So we ended up testing out these retro looks, and boom, it just made sense. But it's very modern. When you look at, you really walk around a modern day Charger Challenger, it reminds you of the old, but doesn't look old. Yeah.
From the design side, this just came to me as a side thing, but do you have any input in the colors that are offered for a vehicle?
Yeah, I run the color department. That's under my purview. The brands get involved, but we basically, serve the colors on a platter. The cars and the Wrangler, we have a field day with those. And a few years back, we went to the LX Nationals, and we brought literally painted speed forms, literally. Like I think we had 25 different colors, and we let the consumer pick what their favorites were. And we ended up actually doing almost all of them. I took it. We try to rotate colors every 6 months, 2 colors every 6 months on the Challenger, and same on the Wrangler. So we try to cycle through and have fun with it, and it works. People really love that.
Is it different getting to design cars like the Challenger or the Wrangler, where they're enthusiast cars and, like you said, people just want to have fun with them, versus something that's a daily driver necessity?
It's that's a very good question. It's terrifying because they are so passionate, those owners, and literally most of them say, "Hey, if you change it, I'll kill you." They love the car the way it is. They don't want you to do anything.
Just keep making it over and over.
Yeah, especially the Wrangler. That's one of those baby. The Wrangler, we do tweak it. We try not to mess with the formula. Of course, Ford comes along with the Bronco, and they copy to them. They did their thing. So we have to up our game, and there's competition even now. We didn't really have competition with the Wrangler. So now it's this balance of respecting your customer, but also going forward. So the interior, we did, try to modernize it a little bit. But yeah, that car terrifies me, keeps me up at night. The Wrangler, the muscle cars are a little easier because we just keep adding power and hoods and everything. So we extended the life. The Challenger is an interesting car. It never lost any sales from day one. It kept increasing or holding steady, even through COVID, bankrupt, whatever. The car kept selling and selling and selling. To this day, we don't understand why. It was so consistent for almost 17 years.
Because we think more horsepower every year.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing to me.
Well, it's amazing from a modern car. A modern car, but it's the modern platform of that's done what it's done. The Camaro's been around for a long ass time. The Mustang's been around for a long ass time, right? It's the modern version, of the Charger Challenger that is just. It's a cult following is what a Mustang and a Camaro has. This is pop culture level.
You know what I've learned? One thing I've learned about design is you have to still make cars practical. I know that sounds counterintuitive, and I love the Camaro as a styling, but it's not a practical car. I've rented them, I've had them as rentals, and they're really hard to see out of. The trunk is really tiny, blah blah blah, right? Whereas a Challenger, you could put 4 dead bodies in the trunk, no problem, right?
Yeah.
2 6'6" guys can fit, no problem in the front. You can have family in the back. So it has this duality where it's a muscle car, but when no one's watching, you can use it as a regular car. And that's something we hold true to. Anything that's fun, we try to make sure whoever's buying it has that intellectual alibi. Hey, I can use it every day, So it really has helped it be more relevant.
I see where you're going with that, and it makes sense on a broad scale for the sales standpoint. But the following that's there, it's something different. It's a status symbol. Virtue signal is the wrong word, but it's a status symbol of it's a statement piece. Different what the other pony cars are.
Mopar has almost always been that way.
But I'm a big college football fan, right? And there's memes out. There was a meme last year I think it was Miami, right? And it was Miami's practice stadium, right? And all of the new recruits that just showed up for their first practice, and the entire parking lot was Challengers and Chargers, right? The entire parking lot, but that's when they first get their first NIL check, right? The status symbol. They don't buy a Camaro, they don't buy a Mustang, right?
I'm going to turn the tables on you. I want to ask you a question backwards. Yeah. And I think I feel it, but when you see a vehicle, from any automaker, not just us, can you reverse feel the passion that went into it?
The passion that went into the design of it?
Yeah. Or the whole car. Can you feel the team's,
I think you can feel the lack of it on a lot of cars.
Yeah, which is that partly answers the question. I think so. I think when I look at you look at some of the Mustang stuff, it feels very passionate, and the Camaro stuff's like they had to get it done. They tweaked it a little bit this year. It's it feels a Camaro almost looks best as a rental car. It fits perfect in the rental car. In the Hertz lineup, it's great. Oh, there's a Camaro over there. Let's snag it. But
that's probably being a little harsh.
Well, I see it and I feel it. You see it. The Mopar stuff feels very passionate. It's very. The design always seems to be at the forefront. We've said that forever. I love Mopar classic, muscle cars and stuff. I love everything Mopar has done. Mopar, I think, I hope you don't take this wildly disrespectful, but there's the quality of some of the build portion of it maybe wasn't, in my opinion, up to like Chevy and Ford at some point, but the style has always been the best.
Oh, you're talking about back in the day on the Charger and Challenger? I mean,
In the earlier years,
stuff?
yeah. Early,
Yeah.
late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like that.
And they had to be. And when you look at the history of the company, they had to be. They had no choice because they were always fighting with the big guys. Especially if you think about General Motors, they had the most amazing engines, and they had some pretty cool cars, the Judge, you name it, right? And then here comes this upstart, with the Mopar crew, and they always crushed them in the actual racing. But so we think of that, and I challenge my team. So if you were to meet my team, I wish they were all here with me interviewing you guys or talking to you guys. You would feel the passion. They really are nuts about making sure the people that buy what they create feel what they're feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
in the details.
I'm going to answer it in a little different way. I can, when I look at cars across the spectrum, it's not about the passion really that to me, because in my mind, I think we're not talking about like a Toyota, a beige Toyota Camry, right? That we're not talking about that, but we're talking about, aspirational cars in some form or fashion. I come in with a preconceived notion that those designers are doing that job because they have passion. I judge a car based on how much staff had involvement and allowed them to do stuff. So I look at a Camaro, for example, right? There's been some Camaros that you look at and you're like, those designers wanted to do so much different stuff and they were allowed to do that, right?
So
I look at
how
some
long
of
the leash is.
how long the leash is, right? I look at
That's very true.
the new AMG GT car, right? You look at that and you're like, holy shit, that's amazing. And because it was a flagship, they gave them a longer leash and they were allowed to do stuff. But now you still see corporate influences. They're like, well, you had to do this, you had to do that. I get it. You got to make the car. I've always looked at, and it's hats off to you on leading the team and knowing how to work with the people to get the answers, right? I think that's the key to it. And allowing them to go further than some other OEs have let them go on some stuff. Because there's been some stuff. I mean, you look at the new GTD Mustang or whatever the stuff. There's flagship cars where you look at it and you're like, that's the passion when you let them roll, right?
Yeah.
And then
I'm a big fan of that thing, the GTD. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's wild.
Really well done. Hats off to Ford for that.
And then you look at stuff and you're kind of like, I mean, let's go to trucks, right? You look at like for the truck market to be so strong, right? And then what Chevrolet has told their designers or allowed their design. I just can't believe that a designer would do the things that they've done with the modern Chevrolet trucks. I refuse to believe it.
Yeah, there has to be, whoever's at the top has to influence that to some extent. Like, it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the meme that I've seen before that's Mopar focused, but it's something where have you seen the one where it's like a minivan? And they're comparing it to like GM and Ford, and then the
Mopar is like, hell yeah, we'll throw a Hellcat in that thing.
Yeah, right.
But I think, I guess the long-winded answer was, you can tell with the different brands, either the team gels or the fun that they're having along the way.
Yeah, and sometimes it depends who the CEO is of the company at the time. In the case of Ford, they've got Farley there, who's obviously a racer. Sometimes it's a brand head. The brand heads tend to come from the sales world and end up, ascending to leading brands. And they're not car people sometimes. They're just business people or salespeople. And that's the danger. In our case, look,
We lost
what they're looking for, but tell them, hey, we like your inputs, but you're not a designer. Stand back and we do our thing and try to get them to see the bigger picture and the passion. But on these kind of cars, like the Wranglers you're talking about, the icons, I would say, they give us a lot of leash, as you're saying. They know those cars are important. We want to make them matter. And again, I only put my most passionate designers on it, and away we go. And luckily, we tend to be more constant. So I've been around a long time, and the brand heads tend to have 3-year cycles, and they move on. And so we're like the shepherds of those brands and of those nameplates. So I take that very seriously, that I got to leave the nameplates better than I found them every time I touch them.
The Wrangler's a cool one. Like, I think about that every year. Every time there's a design change to the Wrangler, because that has to be the most iconic car. It's unusual in the design. It's its own thing. And every time you look at it, it's like you guys take a little bit. You can't make drastic changes, but it's a little bit better. And they're like working towards a more sophisticated, kind of like molded, a real car. It reminds me like
if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's like if you see like the Roman soldiers with their shields up, and it's like they're pushing and they push a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, and it's just every year it's just a little, and it's better.
Funny, yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember when we moved the windshield. I think 3 degrees. We were sweating bullets.
It looks so good though.
So the biggest change was like
it's
lean
phenomenal.
back curved windshield. Like, oh shit! Look at that. It's not flat glass anymore.
Yeah.
Can you, while we're on this subject, can you tell us the thing that we won't understand? Because I've been asking Jeep guys.
Oh, you just won't understand.
Then they keep telling me you just don't understand. I don't know.
You're talking about the wave?
Yeah, it's always
they say it's a Jeep thing.
It's a Jeep thing. You just wouldn't understand. Yeah.
It's the fact that you're putting up with what it is, right? So it isn't the best car to drive. Let's be honest. The steering's a little woolly. It's noisy.
Right.
It sometimes has a mind of its own. You got to correct it. There's a lot of side winds pushing around. So you're putting up with a lot for what it can do and what it makes you feel. So that's what that's all about.
It's a Jeep thing.
Yeah. That's part of the experience though too. It's like you heard the same thing about Harleys. Like it shakes, it rattles. It's going to leak a little bit of oil. It's not the smoothest. It's not the fastest.
A good old one will do that. The new ones don't have any of that salt.
Well,
but
but it's
I know when I lend the keys out, people come back with a smile on their face, because I want to, I let friends borrow my Rubicon, and they're just like, that is so cool. Everyone's waving at me.
Maybe that's the Jeep thing. That makes sense.
We vacation like the same spot all the time, and when we go, we always rent a Rubicon or a Wrangler. And it's a great for like bobbing around town. That is a phenomenal vehicle. Like
just puts you in a good mood.
Yeah, the ergonomics, swinging into a parking spot, and you're on vacation. You're driving it, and it's like it's kind of like a sports car. Everybody's looking at you, giving you the thumbs up. They're waving like, dude, I just rented this thing, and you learn to wave. The kids want to take the top off. It's a neat piece,
and it's virtually undoor dingable, so you don't really care.
Yep.
It brought up a question when you're talking about the working with brand leads and also consumers and stuff. I want to get, what is the one thing that you've fought the hardest for against all management and won, and what's the thing you fought the hardest for and lost?
Good question.
The hardest thing would be interiors. So in the I would say the early 2000s, we still had some pretty craptastic interiors. And a lot of it was cost. It was always this pressure on cost, and the interior seemed to be the most favorite place to remove cost. And one day I just said I had enough, and we did the 2011 Grand Cherokee, the Durango. After that, we started putting much better materials, and they kept trying. I just wouldn't listen. I said, I'm done. I'm done listening to you guys. You're driving our company into the ground. Look, we just went bankrupt. Do you want to do that again? So I just fought, and I created a whole interior team and turned our interiors around. And I'm very proud of that. I take a lot of credit. I usually don't like taking credit for anything because I believe it's teamwork. But in that case, I put my career on the line to fix the interiors, build a team, and it worked. The thing I fought for but didn't get, is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Probably a Gen 6 Viper. Well, I wanted to get a paddle shift system in the Viper. We could not package it. I don't know if that would have saved the car. I think it's one of those cars that now that it's gone, people appreciate it more. But when it came out, everyone was like, well, it doesn't have paddle shift. It doesn't have this, doesn't have it, because we were broke. We made the car literally exiting bankruptcy. I don't even know how we got that car approved because we had a lot of bigger fish to fry at the time. So, yeah, it was a miracle baby.
Yeah, that would, especially with the ZF transmissions and stuff now. I feel like there's the technology you could really make that car
timing.
Phenomenal.
It's fucking timing.
Yeah, I feel like it's always that standard argument, like when Porsche pulled the manual and only did the PDK, everybody only wanted the manuals back.
Exactly.
And it's as soon as it's available or not available, then it's the
you always want what you can't have or you can't get anymore or whatever it is.
Fun fact, real quick. When we came out with the Challenger, it was 20% automatic, 80% auto. Now it's the opposite.
Wow.
When we went out of production, it was literally almost 15% manuals. Yeah.
Huh.
It's crazy.
Yeah, nobody knows how to drive a manual anymore. Is the other problem.
This is true.
On the I don't want to say non-flagship stuff, but not the flagship shit. All right, so we're moving to which still is, especially when you talk about interior stuff. I think what has been done with the other Jeep products, not the Wrangler stuff, the other Jeep. Holy shit, the interiors are fucking phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah.
Unbelievably phenomenal.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Some of the coolest shit out there as far as new car stuff.
Yeah, dude, a TRX absolutely dunks on your Raptor from an interior standpoint.
I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah.
It does. It absolutely does.
That was a mission. And that momentum we built in 2009-10 still is with us to this day. I mean, the head of my interior team is just the best in the industry. We've been poached. We've actually lost quite a few of them to other companies because of that, but I take interiors I started off doing those knobs, so I still have that passion for the details and knobs, and it matters. I know people spend hours and hours in traffic staring at this thing. Why shouldn't it be nothing but the best?
Yeah, when you own the vehicle, that's where you spend all your
time right there. I mean, the specific, the TRX is amazing, right? But like the Grand Wagoneer and stuff, some of the stuff that's in there, I saw you tease on your Instagram, the newer, holy shit, great, hats off, great job. And it's cool to do some of that when you've got a team, right? You've got several hundred people that you're having to keep the fire lit across the board, right? And not all 300 plus people, including yourself, can design the next Viper, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got to work on some things. How do you keep everybody's fire lit? And in and of itself, yourself, like how do you go in?
That's a great question.
Light the fire for the team and light your own creative juices to give some inspiration about like the new passenger car, and be like, hey, this is what we got to. This is the box we got to fit in. Let's make it cool.
Hey guys, we're bringing back the Dodge Nitro.
I mean, globally, you're right. We have, I think we have 1,600 designers globally, all our studios combined. In North America, I have about 380 people or so. Maybe 360 now, actually. Anyway, number one is I let them know everything. I have a lot of town halls. I give them almost too much information. I want them to be on the up and up with everything. Here's what's going on with the company. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's where we're competitive, where we're not. So they feel, first of all, this is my house. They're not just one of the many minions in the thing. They feel like, okay, I belong to this bigger team. Another thing we've always done is when there's a juicy project, like say was the Viper or the next Wrangler or whatever it is, we open up to the whole office. Even if you're a designer for Chrysler, you get to sketch on Jeeps and Dodges once in a while, and they love that because they're still designers. They just happen to end up in one studio or the other. So we open it up to the whole office, and that creates this incredible friendly competition, right? So a couple months at a time, we got this energy in the studios, and then we involve everybody in the triage process. We put all the sketches up so everybody can walk around. It's like a museum opening. It's insane because people tend to tuck them away, and then the day comes, and boom, they all show up. So we have that dynamic, and then we do things like I don't know if you see on my Instagram, we have this famous Halloween competition every year. And I didn't know this, but designers can make some of the most badass Halloween costumes you've ever seen. There should be a TV show over this stuff. So we do that. We do a design office car show. We happen to have this awesome courtyard where we show all our cars, so it makes a perfect place to have cars and coffee. So we have a couple of those in the summer. Then we have picnics. We do a lot of fun stuff. We have ice cream socials. We have this giant 30-foot wide video wall that we showed Top Gun at. We had a Top Gun reviewing. So we do fun stuff like that to build that camaraderie because we work hard, but we also play hard kind of thing. So yeah, I try to create these moments, especially right after COVID. We kind of lost that. Everybody was kind of tucked away. So we've been smoking people back with these fun things to do, and it's working. People. Once in a while, I still have people that leave for other companies, and they cry. They literally sit at my desk and they're giving me the resignation letter, and they're bawling. And they're like, "Why are you crying?" It's like, "I'm gonna miss the family thing." And some of them that go and come back, they say even though they got paid a little more wherever they were, they miss that dynamic. So it is important. I'm a big believer in building teams and families, not just workers, and you get the best out of people.
Have you ever utilized some of Gail's methodology and thrown the small fish into the deep part?
Every day. We've actually had interns involved just by fluke. I saw an intern messing around. I said, "Oh my God, your idea is better than what the pros are doing. You're on this program," and they love it. And it teaches, when my senior guys see that, they see, okay, it's all about the best idea. It doesn't matter your stripes or how long you've been there or who your name is. And that creates humility. We humble ourselves by doing that, but we also raise our game. Yeah.
Are you also back to the original? You still rooting for that underdog?
Always. And I think we still are. I think you're only a project away from being an underdog. You have to always pretend you're the underdog, even if you're not, to keep you hungry. I think that the same in sports, the same in anything, and I love it. And the minute we're successful, I get kind of bored. So I
Well,
like feeling the pressure.
I've got more direction I want to go. You don't have a hard out or anything, do you?
Oh, no, we're good.
All right, good. But I don't want to get into the big EV discussion, right? Because I'm honestly I'm bored of it, and I'm tired of it being utilized as clickbait on stuff. So short of, I really don't care anymore. Short of like government overreach and mandates, whatever. Like, who gives a shit? This is a different train of questioning on the EV design side of things.
Yeah.
For so long, everyone's been pushing the narrative of it's better this, better that. Regardless of that, they've also always shied away from it's not virtue signaling. It's not that I'm doing this purchase to show everybody else. But my question is, on the design standpoint, I know some design aspects are because you can now, because whether the cooling or some of the other, it's a different car, right? So the grille doesn't have to be the same shape. It doesn't have to be the same size. But why does it seem like a lot of designers in the EV space right now are doing things because that's the way the EVs are designed, right? You have to have the wheel be an EV wheel, right? You have to have a closed grill. Yeah, and I don't understand why. And I'm not saying you've done this or whatever. I'm just from the mentality.
No, you're right. You're right on it, because I noticed the same thing. I'm aware of just about every product in the world. I just came back from China three weeks ago, and I saw the same thing over there in Europe, in the US. You're absolutely right. And there is a trend, and it's getting outwardly better. But initially, you remember the IA3s, the i8s from BMW.
Yes. Yeah.
We can go way back into the Impulse, and some of the Leaf was the ugliest electric car ever done.
Well, even the new Mercedes, the IQ stuff in the Mercedes.
Now, some of that is aerodynamics are far more critical for an EV, right? Just because aero is everything. If the aero's not good, you're wasting range. So that's one of the reasons the cars tend to look very slippery. Even the wheels. When you say an EV wheel, the flush of the wheel, it is an aero benefit.
Okay.
And by the way, when you have regen, you don't need as much brake cooling, so you can seal off the wheel, and that gives you a few counts of aero, blah, blah, blah. But one thing, when I give my designers a brief, I refuse to follow the trend that an EV car has to be quirky or be outwardly EV, because some people they want a handsome car. It just happens to be electric. I don't want to go down the road saying, I'm driving an electric car. Look at me, look at all these weirdo features on my car. Now,
good.
Now, when you look at the charger behind me, that pass through, that front end is multiple reasons it's there. First of all, there's no engine back there, so we could do that. Two, it actually improved the aero enough that it's worth about 18 miles of range. Not a lot, but it was enough to kind of say, hey, it helps the range. It just looks freaking cool. And you can tell the difference between the ICE version. There will be a gas version of the car and the electric one. So it's a very distinguishable feature. And that's it. Other than that, you can't tell the car's an EV. And that's what I want. I don't want people to care about that, because it's about good design, period. And you're going to see that with our new line of Jeeps coming out, our new Ram. There's a little bit of that. Again, we don't need a grill, so we had to do something a little bit different. But you're going to see, today we still have what we call multi-energy platforms. So some of them have to have ICEs, and eventually, maybe 5 years from now, we won't have any more of that. I don't know. Who knows? Or we'll have smaller engines with generators, whatever it is. So we're going to always experiment. The front end is a popular, fun place to play around with the identity of the vehicle. But people are still going to be the size they are, so the cabin's going to be what it is, and aero's still going to matter. So I think it's more about the car looking modern than it looking electric.
That the car behind you, is that thing as badass as what everybody keeps saying it is?
So there's about my two guys on my team have one, are actually driving them every day as personal vehicles, and so far they're when they come back, they're giddy as all hell. They say the car handles awesome. The battery creates this keel effect that they didn't expect, so the center of gravity is really, really low. So even though it's a lot heavier than its gas counterpart, the handling is insane.
The only way to find out for real is Roadster Shop probably needs to get a test meal, right? But
you got to. Yeah,
we'll do an oil and whiskey podcast from it while driving.
I don't get. Yeah. Well, we could do that. That'd be great.
I sure as hell I wouldn't race one. I mean, they're hard to beat. The traction is flawless. You don't even have to be a pro. Well, the RT Scat Packs are 675 horse, but 675 electric horse is almost like 1,000 gas horsepower because of the torque.
When are they going to be available?
In a couple of weeks' time. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we got to get a test one for sure. Well, the reason I'm being stupid, but I mean, I would love to test one. But I'm getting so much like BMW 850 vibes right there with that little quarter panel and then that headlight.
You're right.
I'm a sucker for those. I've been trying to find one, and I should have done it like 10 years ago when the price was. And I don't get excited about. One, I don't get excited about new cars a lot, but I don't get excited about new EVs at all. And that thing right there, I mean, hats off. Not just because you're here. That I've been looking at it this whole episode there, and the thing's fucking cool looking. It really is.
Yeah, it's a slick car.
I think, and that's what I care about. I just wanted to be cool. Didn't matter it's an EV. And I'm a drug dealer. I'm like one level.
Yes. We're the same.
One level below a drug. That's my job, is to create a little bit better,
What he brought up, and I've been kind of thinking the whole time and wanted to ask you as a designer, like, I feel like cars are such a passion purchase, even for people who aren't really car people, and it's the look and how you react to it. Like, my wife and my daughter, not car people at all. My wife is not into cars, but like just look at it like, oh, that's a really good looking car. That's what I want. Doesn't know what it is necessarily. No idea if it's an EV, an AMG 1,000 horsepower or a 2-cylinder, but it's just the overall like look and the side profile of the car. And I feel like so many manufacturers just drastically miss that. And it's like the biggest purchase for most people. And it's your identity so much. Yeah. It's what everybody sees you in. I don't know. The question, why do they always miss? Is it design, taste?
I think a couple things. So Chrysler has always been this way, where the designer reports right to the CEO of the company. And that's the way, I think GM isn't that way. GM reports through engineering, so does Ford. So that is already a dangerous dynamic, because engineers, God bless them, but they have their objectives sometimes, and they may not want to do whatever. So companies that are set up that way tend to have a lot of issues. Now, Mercedes, Gordon Wagner is very close with the CEO, so that helps him. And so that you got to watch that setup. To me, just like Apple, you got to have the design and the CEO leadership right there. Without that, we get trounced. I'm sure there's great designers at every company, but marketing wants this, or they get too much direction. It's like, well, that, everyone has an opinion, and then it ends up being nothing. So that's a dangerous cocktail. But I don't know why some companies miss. I know exactly what you mean. You see some cars on the road, it's like, what happened? I've had a couple shankers in my day, but you try not to.
Like when you're looking for a car, all the ones that are like really good looking, like you can never find them, they're never available, and then there's everything else on the lot.
But I know, not everybody's that way though.
Yeah, but like
they wouldn't build a champagne Toyota Camry if everybody.
Right.
No, they wouldn't.
That person is passionate about that car. I mean, you look at look at the Subaru.
That's a car.
Look at the Subaru Outback. I mean, you can kind of stereotype, and you can group people.
They're passionate about that car.
Like women.
I don't get that car. That's a car I can't.
Yeah. Women love early Broncos and G wagons. Love them.
Yeah. My daughter. That's my daughter's two favorite cars.
See? Yeah. It's crazy.
But I mean, there is the guy, there is the family, there is the couple, there is the thing that this literally walks in and is like, we would like a car. We're here to buy a car. Oh, you want a car? We've got these 4 cars.
I want a red car.
Which one's closer? That one's fine. That champagne Camry. I bring the champagne Camry up all the time.
Consider that car when you're going into transportation.
I bring it up. I brought it up probably 50 times on this podcast. The champagne Toyota Camry. No offense to Toyota, but that's the beta of cars. Like, that is just, we've built a car, right?
I think
this is a car to get you.
I think because they look at that as
at least a white one with the black package is like, I got to buy a Camry, but can I keep getting something cool? A champagne Toyota Camry is like,
I think they
rolling
look at
out of bed
as a one-time investment. They're like, we're going to buy a car, and then we'll drive it for the remainder of our lives. And that's what it is.
I know. But there's other colors.
Hey, question. Different subject. You mentioned the Speedcore car. Have you been to Speedcore? It's just up the way in Milwaukee.
We have. Yeah, they actually came out and did the podcast not too long ago.
Oh, outstanding. I love that. I had a blast working with them for 3 years.
How did that come about, and when did you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I got to have something badass built?
I went to, I think it was 2016. I went to a car show, the LX Nationals in California, and I saw the Evolution, the very first one that was on display in our booth. I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like it. I've been looking for a 68 forever. And every time I find one, it's either a project or it's too nice, and I don't want it. And I don't like them stock because they're just too squishy for me. So I knew I was going to do a resto mod, so I never wanted to cut up a good car. And I saw that, and I said, "How do you start?" And he goes, "Oh, we find a rust bucket. Doesn't matter. We find a barn find rust bucket, and we start from scratch." And then one thing led to another. I called him, and I don't know what came over me one day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm like, uh-oh. Little did I know it was going to cost the price of the house or something. But a lot of fun. And it was a gradual thing. We did it, I mean, literally over COVID. We started before COVID. It took almost 3 years. But, it was a lot of fun. We tweaked a lot because they'd never done a 68 before. The other ones are 70s. I don't like this. I like the total clean grill.
68's the best.
Yeah, and I love the afterburner taillights on the 68, the small park turn singles, and the hood. So we were doing the Demon at the time in the studio. No one had seen that hood yet, so I was inspired and actually had them do that hood inverted that way. And you have to do a hood anyway because the Hellcat elephant is so tall. And that's it. Other than that, it's true to the original line. So when I take it around, I have almost 7,000 miles on it, so I've driven it quite a bit.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
I remember.
Mine is the only one, fun fact, and they might have said this, mine's the only one with windshield wipers on it.
Huh? So it's getting some use.
Yeah.
Because the other ones are basically just for show,
I remember seeing that when they debuted that car, and that car obviously got a bunch of hype, and all I could think about is the pressure, like how much, if I were building a car for you, like how much pressure that would be. I'd be like scared to death, like usually you're leading the charge. Like for us, the customer comes in and we're the designers, right?
You're designing.
I think we do a good job with it, but like working for you, I'd be like, oh my God, every little
It's so
item.
funny. I never thought of it that way and they never admitted it till after the fact. So the car was already done. Then they realized, oh my God, it was so hard working for you because they want to disappoint you.
Yeah. I mean, you get big sheet that's big.
Were you pretty involved?
But I gave them a lot of data. They never had a customer who could sketch either. So I would sketch. I sketched the whole hood. The wheel. Literally gave them data for the wheel. So that made their lives easier. Even though I was picky, every time we had a problem, I would just sketch it out, and they would, oh, there we go. Now we know what to do. So a lot. It was a back and forth collaboration, which I really enjoyed. Yeah.
Were there any points where they ever questioned you, like, I think we should do something different? So. And you're like, well, based on my resume,
I don't know if you know this or not, but quite the big deal in the design world.
The story, every time I bring it somewhere, everyone thinks I'm driving a corporate concept car around. They don't realize it's actually my car. So
I know we're not building this in a couple of years. Yeah. It brings me to the next thing. You talk about sketching the wheels and sketching the hood and stuff. Obviously, the progression in the company, you've had wild success, and you talked about at the very beginning being a better leader. That leadership consumes all of your time, right? All of your day. But how refreshing was it to get back on the sketch pad and be able to draw and design some things that you didn't have to run up the food chain to get an answer on, one, and number two, that you actually got to design something.
You just nailed it. That's exactly what it was about. And that's why price didn't matter anymore, because it was that elixir I needed, being in my job for so long and in this industry, 33 years. I needed something where there was no rules. There was nobody just me and the craftsman, and I love it. And what you guys do for a living blows my mind as well, because it's artistry. You're creating a keeper. Someone's going to love that thing and take care of it. And not all cars are that way. A lot of people treat cars like, disposable things. So it mattered to create something special. And I hope the next owner someday it'll be sold, and I hope the next owner really appreciates it. But it saved my mind in some ways, because it's not easy being in this job sometimes. It's glamorous on the outside, but there's a lot of, it's like being the mayor of a village, right? There's always village problems.
Yeah.
So this is a great getaway, a great escape. And now I get to share it with the world. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, still about getaway, that was actually literally my next question is, you're also leading all these people, right? But you still are directing design, right? You're giving tweaks, you're giving stuff, and you're also overall kind of leading direction of, this is the ethos or methodology. We want to do something big, or small, or doing this. What do you do to clear the browser data, browser history, or clear the caches, or delete all the cookies and reset? And how often do you try to do that?
Great question.
So I want to dispel a fallacy of nothing wrong with what you said. Actually, what you said can be true and has been true here and there, but a lot of it is not doing that actually. So I try to get out of the way of my team so that they can do that, right? I want them to come with innocent minds and innocent ideas to reverse inspire me. I don't have all the answers. I can't always sit there and be prophetic and kind of, wave, 10 commandments. This is what Ralph wants. In fact, I hate that. I'd rather wait and see what they come up with first, then, and I always have an idea what it should be, of course, but I want to make sure I don't collude or over, because I learned in the past, years ago, I learned that people had too much respect for me. I know it sounds crazy for a boss to say that, but they had so much respect for me that they just took my word and ran, and they didn't have time to be creative. And I don't want anyone to complain, well, you never listen to my ideas, So
Gotcha.
I really, it's an exercise to hold back leadership sometime as much as it is to lead. Yeah. So it's a careful balance.
That's a great answer to that question. We experience that quite a bit too. Like we employ some very talented engineers, and it's interesting when I'll give certain guys like some sort of input, and it's like they're heavily involved in that project, so they know a lot more about the intricacies of it than I do. And I'm lending my opinion and a little bit of direction. And certain guys will take it like verbatim and follow exactly what I said. And it's like just hit a roadblock. And other guys will just kind of take it as a vague general direction and then apply their skill set and roll with it. And it turns out phenomenal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
that's so much more gratifying when you see that happen.
Yeah, it really is. And you're like, I love seeing it when it's like, holy shit, I never would have thought of that.
Well, that's the thing. Most of the time, you're like, fucking good, better job than I would have done. Right. Great idea.
I love seeing that's the coolest thing when you're like, whoa.
Well, same question applies, though, because you're still looking at the stuff. You're still processing it. You're still making decisions. Over time, especially with as many brands, as many designs, as many sketches as you have to look at, there has to be a time when, at night you got to put all the books back on the shelf, right? You got to organize stuff. You got to do that. Sometimes it might take a few days, because you have to clean out that mind and come back with a fresh set of eyes. What do you do for that?
Wow. Great question. A couple things. Take care of myself. Go on walks. I spend quality time with my partner. I race. I detach, and I try to use a different part of my brain. So I don't think about design constantly. Actually, no offense, I get tired of car guys sometimes because I'm surrounded by them every day. You can only go to so many cars and coffees before you're kind of worn out. So I try to do opposite things, things that are completely unrelated to, the other day, a couple weeks ago, I went ballooning for the first time in my life. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that could.
Like hot air balloon?
Yeah. I did it once before, but this time it was a little different, experiencing it. Stuff like that, just wild. And there's a list of those kind of experiences I want to do. My favorite thing is probably racing, because I'm completely detached. I'm trying to stay alive in the race car with my helmet on. So there's this kind of slow motion, in the zone sensation that is very, very relaxing and fun.
Yeah, your mind can't really wander off and think about that email or that, what's the design on this thing, whatever. You've got to be focused.
Yep.
The fast-paced part.
Correct. Yeah.
That's crazy. I know that we'll go down the design thing. Never mind. Another question. What is one of your biggest pet peeves design-wise across the board, whether it be some of your designers, or other car manufacturers, of things that you're just like, they keep doing that with the B post. Why do they keep doing that with the B post, or something like that?
It's not so much a detail; it's more over designed. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but the C8 Corvette is probably the best example. Right, here's a car that is probably mechanically the most outstanding machine General Motors have ever made. Just a masterpiece of engineering. Even proportionally, it's not horrible, but it's overstyled.
What's wrong with 100 facets and angles? If 90 facets and angles are,
I agree. There's more room to put wings and spoilers on those wings.
And I don't want to criticize them. I never criticize other auto. I hate doing that, but I look at that car, and the E-Ray is the only one I could look at. It's the simplest of all of them. It's cleanest. I'm a big fan of 911s for that reason. I hate the RS GT 3RS, the new one. It's overdone, right? Whereas the normal, I have a Touring, I own a Porsche, and I love the Touring because it has no wings. It's kind of clean. So I'm a believer in let a little paper show through as you design. Let it be clean, and that way the consumer sees what they want to see in the vehicle. If you overstyle it, there's no room for imagination. It's just, it is that, and it assaults you with theme after theme and idea after idea. So I really hate to see overstyled vehicles.
Dude, I love that. I love that. That hits the nail on the head. That car, that car, like you say, is a mechanical masterpiece. I would probably buy one. And there's always something that keeps you from not doing it.
You can take those things off, though.
And it's just that. It's you see it, and at first glance in the rearview mirror, you're like, is that a 488?
Yep.
You know, it looks Ferrari-esque in the rearview mirror from afar.
Yeah.
And then as it comes up, it's like, it's just enough to not make you really want to pull the trigger and get it, because it's just too much. There's too much going on.
If you strip off a lot of those bolt-on things, like you said, more closer to the E-Ray, you strip off that stuff, you can get it sleeker looking, but it's still chiseled.
We've joked about it almost looks like it was a really cool car that a kid like turned it into a tuner car and just bolted on a bunch of shit to
extra shit.
Yeah. The
so probably not going to be able to apply for the ZR1 allocation.
you're not getting
You
that.
just blew that out of the way.
We'll edit that part out.
Okay.
When you talked about leaving some paper show through and leaving some imagination, or when you're designing stuff, and especially it's a new platform, a new car coming out, how much in your mind are you planning on, if it's an enthusiast car, possible modifications and what they're going to do, like, oh, this, we can't build it that way, but I know the guys are going to put some lowering springs on it, and 2 inches lower, it's going to look fucking way better.
All the time. In fact, the Charger that is behind me, that's a concept. The production one ended up being about 20 millimeters taller, just lifted because we needed more clearance. I know people are going to put springs on it and I can't wait to see that. In fact, I expect them to. I want them to, and it puts a smile on my face when I see that. And that's part of the culture. It's part, especially in America, that doesn't happen in Europe that much. It can't happen in certain parts of the world. It's not even legal to modify the car. So to me, it's an amazing dynamic between us and the aftermarket and the owner. So yeah, we always leave a little room out there for them to have a little fun. Yeah.
It's cool.
Personal car wise, you mentioned a few of the things you've had. I saw some of the stuff you've had some Alphas, or you still have some Alphas. What is what's the next itch to scratch, so to speak?
Woo!
Your wife's not going to listen to this, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Audi RS8. I would never buy it, but I just like the idea of a wagon. It's such a beautiful car. I don't know. I'm kind of happy right now. I'm kind of like looking at. I have a modest collection and they're all stuff that matters to me. I love, and I tend to have the race car version and the production version of different cars. I have an ACR and a regular Viper, and things like that. Race car Alphas and street Alphas. So I kind of love the sporty stuff. I love stuff that drives well and it's intoxicating to look at as well as to drive. Right now, I'm kind of laying low. I'm waiting for something to tickle my fancy. But yeah, I'd love to take one of these EV Chargers and strip them down and create like a Pikes Peak special or something like that. I think that would be fun because I know they're so capable, but they still have a lot of accoutrements.
That done kind of like as a Group B car or something like that, with a little bit of hips and some Audi hips or something like that. That would be cool. All right, we're gonna get into standard questions. I want to be respectful of your time. This is one. First of all, I hope we didn't bounce all over the place, and I hope we asked some really good questions. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. It's been fucking amazing.
This has been really cool. I think we kept like slightly on track.
I came in super nervous, and I was like, oh my god, I just remember that time, and then like the 300,
the Viper,
and
then
awesome.
there was the Viper.
That was awesome. So standard questions that we ask. All right, favorite car movie.
And
wow. Hold on a second. Is it a speed round?
No, you can take as much time as you want to, and you can answer like multiple ones. There's no format to this.
I think Ronin.
Oh, Ronin's been brought up. The 5 Series chase scene.
Yeah, some of the best true driving scenes I've ever seen. Yeah.
One of the greatest.
And actually, one of the Bourne Identities was pretty close, but Ronin, just the cars that they use are just.
Bourne Identity. That would be the second one or third one.
Yeah.
It was a good show. Ronin's good though because one, I like the actors that are in it, and it's got from a mechanical standpoint, noise wise, if you've got that on a good surround sound, there's probably nothing better. Like it really is that you can hear.
I'm coming over to your house.
Come on over and listen to and watch Ronin.
Can we start with
in racing movies wise? I thought Rush was not bad. It's really tough to do a good racing movie. Rush was pretty good. And the original Senna documentary is one of the best movies, period. If you've seen it.
That was very cool.
It was.
Very well done.
Yeah.
What's our standard questions? Oh, best piece of advice, and you can choose to the best piece of advice you ever received, or the best piece of advice you'd like to give.
Well, it's kind of, my dad used to always say, we all shit sitting down. When he told me that at the time, I'm like, what is he talking about? Now I understand. Of course, we're all the same. We're all humans. We're all, we have more in common. So we have to kind of focus on that. So it was a way to say, stay humble. Don't get up on your britches. Don't think you're hot shit.
That's good. Very good.
Very timely as of right now, when so much division in the world, and like you said, there's been a lot of ways to say that, but we all. I'm from the South, and I've never heard that.
That fits us the best, I feel like.
Yeah.
Everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time.
I think he cherry picked that one for us. It's like, these guys are hot rod builders, they're a little bit hillbillies.
All right, we're gonna save the best for last. First, in your favorite law enforcement interaction story
with myself. Oh, I have a really good one.
All right, great.
So I used to have back when I was at that studio in California, they sent me out there and I had a brand new Volkswagen Corrado VR6, which I love that car because I was a big fan of Giugiaro Design, who did the Alpha that I love. He did the Scirocco S, and then I got the Corrado, which
Corrado was a sporty ass car.
Yeah,
I love that little thing, and I had it modified with it sounded great, had a great sound. Anyway, I drove it out of California, and I found my boss gave me this book, Best Roads in California. So every weekend I would go drive Ortega Highway, Angeles Crest. I mean, just some phenomenal roads, and I was in Nirvana. And one day we went out on him and my he had a Porsche, an older Porsche Carrera S, a Euro spec one. We went out driving, had a good time. And now he passed away, sadly, but so I can tell a story now. But we were driving through these towns, and when you're flying, you forget how fast you are. So we went through some villages, what we thought was slow enough, but we probably blew through town at 60 when it was 35. So long story short, we're just having a blast. And then there's an open stretch of freeway. And ironically, on the open stretches, we'd go the speed limit. On the curvy stuff, we'd go 30 over. Right. So the cops caught up to us, and I see a Crown Vic coming at ridiculous speed behind me. So I pull over, and he's coming. The cop gets out. He's got sweat rings going all the way down to his belt. He takes he's holding his gun. He yells at me, "Stop the car! Throw your keys up! Put your hands up!" And I threw the keys on the ground. I'm shitting in my pants. This guy's gonna kill me. So I've got my hands up like this, and my buddy's in the passenger seat, and literally my front rotors are smoking because I had slowed down so quickly. And I'm wearing 5-point racing harnesses because I thought that was cool. So the cop is looking in the car and he goes, "What the hell do you think you're doing? I've been following you guys for 25 miles." Because he was in the Crown Vic, he couldn't keep up with us and almost killed himself. And then next thing you know, 5 other cops show up and they're threatening to impound the car. And that's where my psychosis skills came, and I calmed him down. His heart rate must have been 200 because he was driving like so crazy. So I got him calmed down, and he realized he put his gun away, realized we're just a bunch of kids having a good time. Then he slapped us he could have towed our cars away because he never got a gun on us. So he never got a radar gun. So he had nothing to go on. But we both got $600 tickets for hauling ass, and yeah, that was it.
That's a good one. Dodged on that one. Literally,
yeah.
It looked like an episode of Dukes of Hazzard. He really he even sounded Southern. It was fun.
The negotiation skills come in handy, especially when let me just negotiate down to a ticket, because I know that it's probably going another direction. I'll be fine with a ticket, maybe multiple. I'm
guilty. So
we've all been there.
Actually, haven't had that many tickets because I race. I don't really go fast on the streets no more.
First car.
Yeah, we're gonna go first car, but I'm telling you, this is gonna be an oddball. So we had this thing. So like the first season, we would ask everybody a story about their first car, right? What was your first car and your favorite story about that? So we did that. We did that for a while, right? Well, then about midway through the second season, for whatever reason, because we have a pretty good talent of guessing cars, and we make fictional stories about cars that we see. Like if we're out in public, if we're at a bar, one of our favorite things in a bar, we'll look at a guy and we can determine exactly what they're driving. And then when we leave, we'll look in the parking lot to see if we've picked out his car, right? I'm sure you would be
create entire stories.
you
like,
would be
careers
extremely good at this because you're in the business and you know your audience, right? We'll also see a car, and before we see who's driving it, we can tell who's driving it, right? So we do this game. Well, so we started getting into where if we have a good hour and a half, 2 hour long conversation with somebody, we pick up cues, and sometimes we guess the car. So we've been doing that. We've probably got, I would say we're about 99.9% accurate. Every now and then there's one that gets away.
Hey, I think you need to resort back to the everybody shit sitting down.
Everybody
stay humble.
I
think this is going to be an anomaly.
It's all right. So we're probably about 30% accurate. But this is an anomaly because like Canada, I don't know the Canada thing, right? And you're throwing out stuff of like, I love Dukes of Hazzard, right? And I love Knight Rider. So, but your parents were very strict. I would. What did your dad do for a living?
He was an accountant.
Oh, so frugal too. Fuck.
And
my mom was an executive assistant.
You lived in Canada at the time of your driver's license?
Was it a car or a snowmobile?
It was a car, and it was a hand-me-down from an uncle, and that it was a broken car I had to get running. Man, you'll never guess this car ever.
I don't know what people drive. Canada's out of my wheelhouse, man.
I don't know either. I'm going Peugeot. I'm just saying it. I don't know what kind of Peugeot. I'm just going Peugeot.
What? Do they have those in Canada?
Sure.
They did. Yeah.
Oh, man.
French
Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a hint. It's British. It was British.
You gonna go
Jaguar or Range Rover
or MG?
No. You'll never guess. Do you want to know?
I'm gonna just.
I'm
bowing out.
Are you bowing out? You let everybody else take the bullet, and you're bowing out.
I knew this going into this one. Usually, I feel it. Right.
I know. I didn't feel it either.
And this one, I was like, it
could have been anything. I was expecting K car.
Right, so deliver. What do we get?
And some people might Google. It's called the Austin Marina.
Yeah, nobody in the world could have guessed that.
Ellie is going to put up the Austin Marina right now when we're talking about it. The Austin. What color was it?
And it was this you talked about beige a lot tonight. It was beige. Oh. It was this beige color. It was just ugly. I tried to black out the chrome to make it look modern. It had no heat. I almost died in the car 3 times. It was a piece of shit. So
a beige.
As soon as my next car after that was a Volkswagen Scirocco S, which I absolutely adored.
Scirocco S.
So just a cute little car.
Beige cars are the absolute number one birth control, by the way, because nobody's getting laid in a beige car. Now, favorite car, favorite story about. You can go with the beige car, or you can go with the Scirocco. Favorite car. Favorite story about that car.
Wow. Favorite story about Scirocco. Well, I just restored it. I bought it. It was a bunker, of course. Got my first job at the company. I had the car through college. At the end of college, I actually had a car given from my brother, and I got into a car accident, wrecked it, and it was a Corolla. It was actually a Toyota Corolla. I didn't really love it. It was just a hand-me-down. But the insurance overpaid it double what it was worth. So I was able to, I bought this Scirocco. I'm like, I could buy this Scirocco for $1,500 and have $1,500 to mod it. So of course, like an idiot, I should have put the money into my bank account. I modded the car, and I discovered this company called Teutonics out of California, got camshafts and exhaust, and away we went, So I remember working at Chrysler, and every other paycheck went into the car. It was crazy. So I was not very smart. But I had fun. I just made a lot of friends. I learned how to autocross in that car, so I take it to go play around with it. It's a track, but it's just a fun car. I don't really have any bad stories about it. I just loved it. Loved the color. It was Mars red color. I got so many tickets in that car. I almost lost my license, and it wasn't even that fast. It was just because it was so orange.
Yeah, so bright.
Before we let you go, we appreciate the time. But I just got to ask you, how big of a Dukes of Hazzard fan are you really? Like, scale of 1 to 10. How big of a
11.
fan?
I think I watched every.
Can you reach over here?
Oh,
you grab this for me?
You've got the new thing.
Because interestingly enough, I was just in Louisville, Kentucky over the weekend. I stopped at this super cool antique store, and out of the entire store, I spent probably 3 hours in this place. And the one item, well, I left with 2 items, but the one I was most proud of, I walked away with this. Okay. And first I see the box, and it just says the Dukes of Hazzard. I'm a Dukes of Hazzard fan, right? So I grab it, and then I open it up, and I realize that it is a mint, untouched, digital Dukes of Hazzard watch with the original price tag on it.
Dang.
And I mean, look at
I
that.
didn't know they made those.
Oh,
I had no idea.
it's phenomenal.
Well,
so
it's quality LCD quartz watch is what it is.
It's a prized possession after it just made its way up to be displayed on the podcast wall up there. But I would love to send that your way. If you've got room on the shelf for it, that's all yours.
Dude, the packaging,
that would be the best.
The packaging is amazing.
Instead of an alarm, does it do the horn?
I'm very proud of this. So I'm going to show. I don't know if it'll work with the filter, but see that picture?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Boss Hog.
Hog.
That's you.
So that's me. I'm 11 years old. I waited an hour and a half at the Montreal Motor Show to take that picture with Boss Hog.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Well, you've got to follow up with Josh. Send us an address, and this limited edition timepiece is all yours.
It's headed your way.
I'll trade you. And you have to understand, I'm watching this show, eating my cereal, having a time of my life, and I had no idea what the Confederate flag was all about. my dad
None of us
he
did.
would watch. My dad would watch me watching that show, and he would just shake his head. He's like, "Boy."
Hey, it was about the car, right?
It
We
was about
were
the
all
car.
watching it for the car.
It was
Daisy.
It was
Daisy.
historically accurate. I mean, what do you want to do? I mean,
Exactly.
man, it's been absolutely amazing.
So cool.
I really appreciate it. It was a great time talking to you. But on your way out,
Cheers.
what advice do you give to kids that want to get into this?
Do your homework. If you have skill and a lot of give a shitness, get into it. And I don't like to brag about this, but Netflix did a phenomenal piece on myself, but it was really about design, automotive. I happen to represent automotive design in this series called Abstract of Design. And if you look up
design.
If you look up my name, Ralph Gilles, it kind of takes you behind the scenes, talks about my whole story in a way. And a lot of colleges use that in art school to help young people decide if, hey, could this be what they want to do for a living? So I recommend looking that up on Netflix.
Is it Gilles? I pronounce it Gilles.
Yeah, Ralph Gilles. Yeah.
All right. Well, I looked it up beforehand because I heard it pronounced about 100 different fucking ways in different podcasts. So I thought I was doing the right thing. But you know what? I should have just asked.
It's all good. It's all good.
A bit of blast, man.
Yep. Absolutely.
Really
Very
appreciate
much.
the time.
A lot of pleasure being with you guys. Good luck with your show, and
Thank you very
keep doing
much.
what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.
Take care. That was amazing.
It was amazing.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's the shortest I've ever owned something so awesome.
You were just dying.
Yeah, I thought it was so cool.
You got
You're so
got
cool.
out
You're
ahead
so
of your
cool. You
skis a
have
little
it.
bit. Like, look at this. Look at you. Want to be my friend? You can, dude. You can take it.
He seemed like I could see it in his eyes. He was a genuine fan, and that's got to be
Dude.
the holy grail.
Did you give away your backpack super soaker?
No, there's no, fuck no.
I saw Little Jer.
Giving away the back. Okay, the backpack super soaker was
Dude,
that.
this is so cool. You're cool.
That
You
did
can
not
have it.
Leave the Gerber property. Those things were not as great as everybody made them out to be. They would.
I
They
didn't
would
say it was great.
They
It was
would.
just
The
fact that you
damage
had
they
it.
would do on your spine.
Oh, I wore one. A buddy's, rich
Just
buddy.
rubbed
Yeah.
raw.
Thanks, John.
Super-
Thanks, John York, for that. I'll forever be known as
That was the greatest story.
the kid with the fucking backpack super soaker.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
That was super cool, man. What an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Crazy career.
Awesome hearing his backstory and his actual passion for cars, and cool to see what's behind all these crazy.
When else are you going to get
over
an
the year.
opportunity to talk to a car guy that's also leading design currently right now? You can talk about like old stories of people and stuff. It's so fucking cool to see. And the iconic cars that he's been behind.
It's insane.
Yeah. Really fucking cool, dude. Everybody that's already not following him on Instagram, it's Ralph, RalphGilles.
And you pronounce
Instagram.
yes. Yes is not silent.
Gilles.
If you can run that back, he can say it again.
Yeah, he could say it.
What else we got?
Whatever he said. It's whiskey review time.
Let's review this one.
This is the time that we review whiskey.
I think we're probably like 10 episodes into not reviewing whiskeys.
No, we've only missed a couple.
Really?
Have
Yeah.
we?
It seems like it's been a while. Well, let's review it.
We're reviewing it right now.
Okay.
Fucking A. Negative Nancy.
Sir? You want to start? You want to go?
Let's review this whiskey.
All right, let's do it.
Whistle Pig camp stove, solo stove, limited edition. Jeremy got this. You bought it the other day.
Yeah. I was on, I had this like hankering for
Hey, what?
collabs. I saw a collab. I just kept seeing collabs, right? And I said, well, shit, Whistle Pig's got a collab. There's another one sitting over there that we'll dig into.
And you figured you'd give him a shout out.
And then I saw Solo Stove on the bottom, right? Hey, can we talk about shout outs for a second? Because the last podcast we did, why is it that you're so hard on me? No, you're incredibly hard on me. I've given like 3 shout outs
per episode.
We won't name names, but an individual that was on this podcast, I sat here and I listened to him use the word shout out and I'd like to give at least a dozen times in one episode.
Well, it's a guest. You can't call a guest out.
You didn't say shit.
I know, but you're usually nice to guests. I'm not nice to you. You're not nice to me. So
3 times. 3 times. At any rate, Solo Stove.
Over under closer to 10.
I'll take
Closer to
Big
10.
shout out to Whistle Pig, guys.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an off the wall thing, but it's a catchy little logo on there. And Whistle Pig doesn't traditionally have bourbons; they're usually rye.
Yep.
And Josh is the owner of a Solo Stove, and I said Josh would probably like this. He's got a Solo Stove.
I do have a solo stove. But I could see you're buying a couple of them. You're like, hey, let's grab some new stuff. That's one that I would have been like, fuck it. You know what? Probably worth a shot.
Well, it hit
not a high expectation, but probably worth a shot.
Several times I've seen it a bunch, and I'm like, oh, Whistle Pig, not a huge fan. Oh, Solo Stove, that doesn't make me think of bourbon. I would never pair those two together.
They've got a good history of the collab side of things. Usually on the collab side, they do a good one.
They make it better.
Yeah. Generally.
And I like the Whistle Pig 10-year rye is my go-to for making cocktails. If you're making a Manhattan or making a Sazerac, that's the number one.
But it's weeded too, so why not give it a shot?
And then I saw weeded. We all seem to like weeded bourbons. It's light proof.
Super light.
And then we started this podcast and I said, man, this seems like, we took a sip and I said, this seems like a podcast kind of bourbon.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of looked at and scolded, I think, by both of you.
No.
A little bit?
No, not a lot.
But that's exactly what it is. It's something you could just sit and drink.
Yeah.
A lot of it. It's easy to drink. It's super smooth.
You know what
it's
this
flavorful.
would be? You know what this would be?
It's just good. What's that?
Car show parking lot bourbon.
Yes. Yeah.
Crush it. You better get 2 bottles of it because you're going to go through it.
Yeah.
It's the light beer of bourbon.
Yeah, it
I
is.
don't,
it's the natty light of bourbon.
It's a difficult one to rank because it's not a great bourbon where you would put it up there and rank it with some of the greats. Like we just drank an Elmer T. Lee. Right, you can't compare that from a flavor profile, but it's very good and it's something you would really drink and enjoy. So
it'd be a good sipper. You don't feel bad about killing a bottle.
Yeah,
not even a sipper, a drinker.
If a new guy's only had a few bottles of bourbon and he's got a choice between this and Buffalo Trace, what would you tell him to do?
I mean, you're still going Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
If he's had Buffalo Trace before.
Okay, or what's your favorite? With the paper on the bottle,
Dude,
Basil Hayden.
Gasoline over Basil Hayden's.
But that's
baby's poo over Basil Hayden's.
I don't think they sell that.
But that's harvest it yourself.
That's like a go-to when you don't know much about bourbon.
Right.
This would blow that out of the water.
It's a great rookie bourbon.
If a guy's wanting to try some stuff and he's not big on, I like the flavor of it. I honestly really like the flavor of it. And if there's a guy that likes to try different bourbons, but the proof thing gets him. You know what? Give it a number.
It's 100% buy it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'm gonna go 6.8.
Man,
right?
6 something seems low.
It does.
7.0. I'm 7.0.
Okay. I was going 6.5.
We're really?
I was. Yeah, that's why I said it.
Really? Huh? The flavor or just the lack of?
It's
good
thin.
flavor,
It's thin.
lack of proof, but like way better than a lot of the ones that are high proof and really hard to drink.
Man, you're hard to make happy. Either too low a proof or too high a proof.
But I'll tell you,
You've got a very discerning palate.
buy it for the fucking packaging.
Don't buy. If you don't have a Solo Stove, you shouldn't be buying it.
Or buy it, then get a Solo Stove. A Solo Stove's nice, dude. That one you got, that thing's fucking cool.
Thing cranks.
It does.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It's cool. Good bottle.
Nobody gives a shit at this point. Whistle Pig, Camp, Stove, Wheat, Whiskey. I give it a 7. You give it a 6.8. Phil gives it a 6.5.
But I definitely give it a buy it and put it in your collection.
Yeah, I would buy it.
That's a great bring to somebody's house bourbon.
100%.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Anybody who
Nailed
drinks it is going to like it. You're going to have something unique and different that they're not used to.
Yeah.
Dude, you just nailed it because it's reasonably priced too. That's exactly
Is it
what
really?
it is.
What is it, like 40, 50 bucks?
Somewhere around there.
Reasonably
priced.
priced.
$60.
I can't believe you gave this away. You're an idiot. This thing's probably worth thousands of dollars.
Let's see if he actually replies and gives you an address to send.
Oh yeah, I really wanted a Dukes of Hazzard watch.
I bet he gives me a P.O. box. He doesn't want us to know where he lives.
You're probably right. But that thing's fucking awesome. I wonder, to Phil's point, if it makes any noises, if it gives you a Dixie horn.
Better Dixie horn when it hits the alarm.
Well, you can't. It's fucking NOS. You don't be fucking with
Look
it.
at it. It still has the fucking plastic cover.
Yeah.
over it.
You've just gave away probably $2,500.
You know what was sitting next to it that I was on the fence about buying, but I couldn't bring it back? I was scootering, right? And I was about 1.8 miles out from the hotel.
The cowboy hat from Smokey and the Bandit.
No, it was a
wooden shoe.
Snake and Mongoose Hot Wheels set.
Oh, the hauler?
No, it's the two funny cars signed by fucking Don Perdome.
Really?
$150. And then so I Googled it real quick, and you could buy them for like $1.25. I mean, to me, like, Don Perdome's cool. He was a fucking asshole in the elevator at one time when we ran into him at Indy years ago. So I'm like, I don't want this fucking dude's autograph. So I didn't buy it.
Super awesome story.
That's a pretty good story. That's the fucking
You just wanted
elevator
to
with Don Perdome.
You just wanted to say he was an asshole.
No, I didn't.
He
I
wanted
was
to
talking.
say-
It was a cool looking thing. It was
In a case and all that
yeah,
stuff.
the whole case, unmolested, fucking mint, and then right there on the bottom is his autograph.
You could have
That
backpacked
was
it.
the deciding factor not to buy was he signed it.
No, it was actually the scooter ride. Because I'm like, if I have this thing, there's no way I'm doing freestyle shit on the scooter.
You know what? If you
On the
would have
way
had a backpack
shirt
or a shirt with a backpack,
Dude.
we're not going to get into that now.
That's another time. That's a whole podcast in itself, boys.
You ever thrown a backpack over a shirt? And you were like, what?
At any rate,
Seems repetitive.
great podcast.
Awesome episode.
Yeah.
Thanks to Ralph. Appreciate him doing this.
Thanks for listening.
I'm actually going to check out one of those new. I'm telling you, that thing's got BMW 850 vibes. I'm looking for that thing.
You were spot on with that.
Yeah, I was the
you
one
just
in
give it
the-
a quick
the
glance.
headlight.
Give it a quick glance, and yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Which that's a beautiful car.
We'll see you again next week.